It was a quiet afternoon in the upscale restaurant Cielo's Table. Sunlight filtered through the large windows, casting a warm glow across the elegant white tablecloths and polished glassware. The restaurant was owned by Marcus Hale, a young black man who had turned a struggling establishment into one of the most popular dining spots in town. Known for its refined ambiance and exceptional cuisine, Cielo's Table was the pride of Marcus and a testament to his dedication. Today, however, Marcus wasn't in the restaurant. It was his rare day off, and the staff had full reign of the place, including a new waiter named Todd. Todd had been recently hired, and though he was good with most customers, he had a tendency to judge based on appearances, an attitude he thought he concealed well. He had learned the ins and outs of the restaurant and thought he knew exactly which type of clientele belonged. Around noon, an elderly black woman stepped into the restaurant. She moved slowly, leaning heavily on her cane, her clothes plain but neat. Her name was Ms. Eleanor Hale. She hadn't been to her son's restaurant in a while, preferring to let him flourish on his own terms. But today she felt proud and decided to visit, eager to enjoy a quiet meal. Todd spotted her from across the dining room. He was busy serving a well-dressed couple, glancing skeptically at Ms. Hale as she approached an empty table. She smiled at him, a gentle, genuine smile, hoping to catch his eye so he could bring her a menu. But Todd barely acknowledged her. Minutes passed, and Ms. Hale sat patiently, believing that maybe the staff was short-handed. She watched as Todd served other tables, each time glancing at her as if she were an inconvenience rather than a guest. Finally, she managed to catch his attention with a polite wave. "Yes?" he asked, barely masking his irritation. Ms. Hale's smile wavered but remained as she requested a menu. Todd sighed. "Ma'am, I'm afraid this is a high-end restaurant," he replied, his tone dripping with condescension. "Maybe you'd be more comfortable at a more casual place." Ms. Hale's face fell and a flicker of hurt crossed her eyes. She wasn't used to such blatant disrespect, especially in her son's own restaurant. Taking a deep breath, she maintained her composure and quietly replied, "I'd still like to see the menu if you don't mind." Todd hesitated, clearly annoyed, but he eventually walked off, returning moments later with a menu which he practically tossed onto the table. "Here, but just so you know, our prices might be a bit out of range," he muttered, loud enough for the nearby diners to hear. Other guests glanced over, some with shock, others with a knowing look. Ms. Hale felt her cheeks burn, not out of embarrassment for herself, but for this young man who seemed determined to demean her. She opened the menu and began browsing, though her appetite was beginning to fade. Todd continued to ignore her, attending to other tables with warmth and enthusiasm, a stark contrast to the treatment she received. Finally, after several more minutes, he begrudgingly returned to her table. "Are you ready to order?" he asked, barely meeting her eyes. "Yes," she said, keeping her voice steady. She ordered a simple dish, something she knew her son was proud of. Todd scribbled it down without a word and walked away, leaving her alone once more. As she sat there, Miss Hale couldn't shake the sadness that had settled over her. She had raised Marcus to believe in kindness, respect, and integrity, values he'd built this restaurant upon. To see a waiter disregard those principles felt like a betrayal. When Todd returned with her food, he set the plate down carelessly, spilling some of the sauce onto the tablecloth. Ms. Hale said nothing, only nodding her thanks. She started eating, the flavors familiar and comforting, a small reminder of her son's hard work. Midway through her meal, the restaurant door swung open, and in walked Marcus, dressed casually, looking around with a smile. He had stopped by to pick up some paperwork he had forgotten. His eyes landed on his mother, and he immediately lit up, crossing the room to greet her. "Mom," he said warmly, leaning down to hug her. "I didn't know you were coming by." Ms. Hale smiled, relief flooding her face as she embraced her son. The nearby tables watched, sensing something significant. Todd, however, stood frozen, his face paling as he watched his boss show affection to the woman he'd just humiliated. "Marcus, honey," Ms. Hale said softly, "I'm so proud of you. The food is wonderful." Marcus grinned, turning to Todd, who stood rigidly, trying to appear nonchalant. "Todd, thank you for taking care of my mother," Marcus said, oblivious to the tension. Todd stammered, his mouth opening and closing as he struggled to find words. He nodded quickly, attempting to smile, but his discomfort was palpable. As Marcus chatted with his mother, he began to notice her subdued tone, the slight tremble in her voice. Concerned, he asked her if everything was okay. Ms. Hale hesitated, casting a glance at Todd, who was visibly sweating under her gaze. She took her son's hand and looked at him with a steady gaze. "Marcus, I just want you to know that no matter what happens here, your kindness and respect for others are what matter most." Marcus frowned, sensing there was more to the story. He turned to Todd, who was now visibly uncomfortable. "Todd, were you respectful to my mother?" Todd's face turned beet red as he stammered out a mumbled excuse, something about misunderstandings and thinking she wasn't a typical customer. But it was clear that Todd knew he was cornered. Seeing her son's anger rise, Ms. Hale patted his hand, urging him to let it go. But Marcus had made up his mind. He turned to Todd, his voice calm but icy. "Get your things," Marcus said. "You're done here. We don't treat our guests, especially my family, with anything less than respect." Todd's face fell, but there was no argument he could make, no apology that would undo his actions. He left the restaurant, shoulders slumped, defeated. As Marcus turned back to his mother, Ms. Hale gave him a gentle smile. But behind her calm expression, there was a lingering sadness. Even in her son's restaurant, a place built on love, respect, and resilience, she had faced discrimination. The meal continued, but the joy was gone, replaced by a silent understanding between mother and son. Even in a place she thought would be safe, Ms. Hale had been reminded of the harsh reality that came with the color of her skin. As she finished her meal, she squeezed Marcus's hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Don't ever let them change who you are, son." Marcus nodded, but a shadow had fallen over him. He vowed to protect his values fiercely, yet he knew, deep down, that the world wouldn't change as easily as a single staff member in his restaurant. The fight, it seemed, was one he'd be battling his entire life. Marcus sat with his mother in the quiet of the now empty restaurant, his mind heavy. He knew that he could keep firing those who didn't embody the values he held dear, but he couldn't single-handedly erase the prejudices that ran so deep. Watching his mother go through such an experience in his own establishment left him feeling both furious and heartbroken. Ms. Hale took his hand gently, giving him a look filled with understanding. "You're doing more than you know, Marcus," she whispered. "Keep leading by example. One day, people will see." As Marcus helped his mother out of the restaurant, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a larger battle. But he was determined to make his restaurant a place of true respect and inclusion, no matter how long it took. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales that reveal powerful truths and provoke thought, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell icon to stay updated on our latest videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.